Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, which means it's time for our weekly Pirates chat. As always, Andrew Destin, reporter here for the Post-Gazette, joined by Jason Mackey, our Pirates beat reporter. And Jason, you're in Baltimore this past weekend. Saw Mitch Keller shoving it on the mound again. Just coming pretty common practice for him. And the Pirates scored 1 3 runs. Saw history. How about that, huh?
How about that, huh? Wow. That was a fun game in Baltimore, and it made up for a lousy series. Saturday into Sunday. I think that's what days we're talking about here. I don't even know anymore. We're at that point in the season. But man, was Keller good. He was so good. Like bona fide ace territory. I do think the offense is going to snap out of this thing, Andrew. I really do. They weren't as good as they were, or they're not as good as they were in the first month, and they're not as bad as they've been over the past 2 weeks. The water is going to find its level. It's amazing with baseball how sample sizes, can be a thing. I feel like in hockey, there was a much sturdier ground on what a team was 40 games into a season. With baseball, you're still kind of searching. Ben Cherington talked about this on his radio show on Sunday, where individual performance is kind of tough to gauge at this point, but team-wise, it's a little clearer. I guess I get what he's saying, but I still think, driving to Detroit last night, I'm listening to the Cardinals-Brewers game on the radio, and here are the Cardinals, all of a sudden picking it up. Everybody buried them, said they were going to be terrible. I think they're going to be just fine. It's just, I don't know, a lesson in sample sizes, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's just you get so much time to work with all this, and yeah, Cardinals are a perfect example of that, right? Of you got a 162 game season, and I think it's just that kind of goes to the point you bring up talking about Mitch is that as the sample sizes get larger and larger of how often we're seeing this guy really going on the mound and pitching well. I mean, this is kind of just becoming a commonplace thing with him. We're now seeing the last 2 starts he's been dominant. I know there's been talks about the contract extension. You and I have talked about that a little bit before,
Yep.
and now it really coming into the fold, into the fray here. I mean, it's fascinating to see just because, I mean, you wrote about it a year ago this time. This was a guy who was, fighting for a spot in the bullpen, and now full-fledged starter who's dominating, right?
I mean, not only that, after the game, I thought this was interesting, Andrew. Somebody asked him, a year ago, could you have predicted this? And he kind of laughed. He's like, no. A year ago at this time, I was trying to have a job. Wasn't worried about this or anything like that. And he was right. I remember talking to Mitch after Cole Tucker got DFA'd, and they were close friends. I asked him something, hopefully gracefully, about, do you think about, does that hit home a little bit more? He goes, oh, absolutely. And admitted, he pitched like crap. He wouldn't blame them for DFAing him. And now look at it, right? If the All-Star game started tomorrow, I think he would go. I think it would be up for debate whether he starts, but I absolutely think he would go. And everybody in baseball right now knows who Mitch Keller is because of how darn dominant he is. And lately, he's been the only reason the Pirates have won. But like I said, I think the offense will turn around, and I'm just so impressed by Mitch. He's not doing this with one gimmick thing. I wouldn't call the sinker last year a gimmick, but it was something that nobody had seen before, and it was tough for teams to react to. He's become a bona fide stuff guy. He's throwing 6 pitches competitively, and to me, that's repeatable. That's really good. That's sustainable. However you want to say it, but I love what he's doing so much.
Yeah, and not to mention, you mentioned the 6 pitches. It's not like this is something that was done out of an effort of, the velo's gone down and it's no longer the same stuff, right? It's still the same live electric arm, so you pair that with an expanded repertoire. Yeah, that's a good recipe for winning, right?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad. What they need is more from their starters, but they haven't necessarily been bad. I look at Johan Oviedo, Roansy Contreras, Rich Hill. We've seen flashes of what these guys can be. Vince Velasquez, I think, is going to be back in relatively short order. Could be as early as this weekend. He's going to throw live batting practice today. I guess this weekend might be a little tough. And then rehab start later in the week, and then he's eligible to come off Saturday. But, I mean, that's when things were really humming along, when Oviedo, Contreras, Hill, Velasquez, they're covering 5-6 innings. They're keeping teams in the game. And then at that point, you've basically got 1 or 2 innings, and then you've got Holderman and Bednar at the back end. And I like their chances if that happens. They don't have to score a ton of runs for that to happen. But lately it's just been short starts. Bullpen early on has faltered, and they're not scoring enough runs.
Yeah. You bring up those two starting pitchers there in Contreras and Oviedo, guys who went over the past weekend. I'm curious from your vantage point, just seeing those guys live. I mean, for the most part, the starting pitching hasn't kind of been living up to billing the last week and a half after that excellent start. Did you see those guys kind of get back to maybe who they are or who they were? Contreras, I mean, at least from my vantage point, it kind of seems like this is a guy who, yeah, he's lost a couple of ticks out on the velo with the fastball. Maybe that's intentional. Maybe that's just the arm where it's at right now. But a guy who's pretty effective, who even if he's not striking guys out, he's able to induce a lot of weak contact. Is that kind of what you were seeing in Baltimore, him returning to that kind of pitcher? And then with Oviedo, I'm curious how the stuff looks. I know he was, effectively wild was the term Derek Shelton used. What do you kind of see from those guys?
Yeah. So I was really impressed with Roansy the last time, Andrew. I thought he was like one of the best versions of himself that we've seen. And it started with me with the fastball command. He did a great job of commanding the fastball. It was up a couple ticks velocity wise, and that's important for Rowe. Yes, his slider's very good. His changeup has come a long way. I think his curveball's usable. It starts and ends with the fastball. And when he was commanding it the way he did, and I guess I say that, I remember covering a start of his, I think it was 2022 in Milwaukee. It was an absolute dud. Like he got beat around, was out of the game early. And it was because he didn't have his fastball command. And I don't know why. Maybe this is a simple thing, but it just seems like he's more affected by something like that. Guys can sit on his slider, spin on the fastball, whatever it is. It generally doesn't go well for him when he's spraying his fastball. But it was the exact opposite of that in Baltimore. I was getting quick outs. He was pounding the strike zone. I really liked what I saw from him. With Oviedo is a little bit more of a question for me, Andrew. I don't know how you feel about it, but like stuff-wise, yeah, it's good. It's been good. I don't really have an issue there. He needs to command the slider. That's not always been in the zone. When he has thrown strikes, it has been so darn impressive what he's been able to do. And for whatever reason, and this is actually something I want to get to with him today or maybe tomorrow in Detroit, why do things change? Why does it spin on a dime like that where we see really good performance? Like here, he had a 3-start stretch, 19.2 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, 21 strikeouts. His last 4 starts, 17 2/3 innings, 18 earned runs, 12 walks, 11 strikeouts. Like I know that's a mishmash of numbers, but I'm just reading from the notes I was taking like 30 minutes ago. Why? Why has that changed? The stuff has remained good. It's not like you look at it and say, oh my gosh, the slider's flat, the fastball's up. Like, no, that's not really the case. So he's just a curious case for me. What have you seen?
Yeah, kind of that. And I think and maybe this is giving too much credit or putting too much emphasis on the opposition, but I think game planning from the opposition's hitters, I think that plays a really big factor into it too. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but just looking at pitch counts and inning efficiency, that's something I feel like with him maybe more than any other starter this year. It's like it's very variable to change, where he'll be really efficient in some starts and get through outings quicker. And even if those strikeout numbers are up, like his pitch count's lower. And I think maybe that's just strategy from more veteran hitters, maybe against more veteran lineups that they're more willing to take some of the spin and let it dive. Because, this is a guy who majority of his offerings are going to be curveballs and sliders. So I don't know if that plays into it at all, but I think he's maybe not been as changeable or variable as it might seem based on the numbers. Maybe it is that he's been kind of similar in that, like you said, it's not like he's throwing flat fastball or throwing sliders that aren't diving or anything like that. Maybe it's just teams that approach him differently. That's just kind of me spitballing. But from what I've seen, it seems like a guy who, has had his stuff more often than not this year, and maybe the stats haven't reflected that in certain outings.
Yeah, I don't love his pitch mix. I'll say that.
Yeah.
That's another thing I wrote down. He's throwing his four-seamer career low 34.1% of the time. Opponents are hitting 367 against it, slugging 531. Sliders being thrown a career high, 41.6%. I would try to even that out a little bit. I think he's best when he's a little bit more predictable. I like the slider. I like the four-seamer. I like his curveball. I even like his changeup. Like I'm good making him a 4-pitch guy, but I think he gets a little too what's the term, comfort blankety-ish or something. Like he gets a little too addicted to his slider and like, throw other things, man. I think what you're saying is like opposing hitters tend to sit on that a little bit. They know they're going to get a healthy diet of sliders, or they're going to wait for him to come in the zone with something fat. And, you get put in a 3-0 count, 3-1, something like that. You can basically sit dead red, and then the fastball's getting hammered. So to me, I know Derek Shelton says this a lot. It sounds like, a cliche or whatever, the execution of the breaking ball in the zone. I mean, with him, I think there's a little bit of truth to that.
Yeah, and it's not just stealing like a 3-1 strike with a slider. It's if you're throwing it so often, it almost becomes, you said it right there.
It's his primary pitch. It really is. I mean, numerically, it's his primary pitch.
Yeah, so you're not stealing. I guess you are theoretically if a guy's taking a 3-1 slider, but they're probably looking for that more often than usual. So I guess, it's just kind of, I think touching on the pitch mix is important there because in April we saw how much the Pirates all across the board were throwing sliders. Maybe with Johan, there might be something to do there with kind of evening out those numbers in a better direction. But you touch on the hitting problems a little bit, and not very much to speak of across the board with the last 3 games and really the last dozen or so. After taking 1 out of 3 in Baltimore, what was kind of the vibe down there in the Charm City? Was it any more tense than it had been in Pittsburgh? Is it the same, or it might be hard to gauge after Mitch's start? But I'm curious if there's anything you've picked up on there.
It was bad before Mitch's start. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty rough. They're feeling it. I mean, we're standing in there, and there's nobody there. They're having meetings. It's like the clubhouse was a very populated, friendly, exciting, welcoming, whatever you want to say, place when things are going well. When things are going poorly, we're in there at the same time, same drill, and you're staring at empty lockers. Maybe it's because guys are meeting or whatever, but I mean, it's just a much different vibe around the team. The Keller start kind of changed that. And I think it was the same way after his complete game shutout, right? Like it gives some sort of hope. To me, the story is like, how do you follow that? What do you do against the Tigers? They're going to have a really tough pitching matchup tomorrow against Eduardo Rodriguez. And not exactly a slouch today against Michael Lorenzen, but you can't have that go to waste again, right? Like there's a lot incumbent on these guys starting tonight, tomorrow. Who is it? It's Hill tomorrow. I'm blanking on who it is tonight.
I think Ortiz.
Ortiz, thank you. There's a lot riding on those guys having a good start. There really is. Like you just don't want to see the momentum from that last game die. And you need to have a good start. You need to have some offense. You need to have a lot of ingredients. But yeah, to answer the question about the vibe in there, Andrew, it's been pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Could benefit from some good starting pitching from those guys. And Luis, I guess, second start of the season for him? Curious what we're going to see from him, because there was some goods, some bads last time out.
Yeah.
Vince
we covered that one together, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. He throws so darn hard. I love the slider. I like the way he's using his changeup. He's added a sinker. Like the weapons are there. I wasn't overly impressed with him his last start. He was just kind of there. Just kind of a guy. I'm curious to see what happens with this outing tonight, though. I mean, you look at his spot in the rotation is probably tenuous at best, unless there's another injury. I mean, when Velasquez comes back and he's ready, he's going to pitch. I think he should pitch. But what do you do with Ortiz? I'd probably send him back down to the minors unless he proves to me that there's a reason to keep him around. I don't like the idea of him being a reliever. I've heard that suggested places. I don't like the idea of moving Oviedo either. Like, if Ortiz goes out and shoves tonight, I suppose I reconsider it, but I think I probably just see him as somebody who needs a little bit more development. What about you?
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. The only reason you keep him up is you got, double-digit strikeout type night, 7 innings, 1 run, and I think we saw a lot of it in AAA is them lengthening him out, and I think there's nothing wrong with continuing to do that in Indy. I mean, this is a guy who last year when he was getting starts, right, he wasn't going deep into games. It's still something he's not, super comfortable with, or something he's done for an extended point in the minor leagues. So I'd say with Luis, if he does great, sure, then we reconsider the point. But I think it's kind of a moot point to the degree of Vince's injury isn't as serious as we all kind of maybe thought at first. A rehab assignment's probably, nearing the end of this week after the live BP. So unless he gives you something that would, show that he deserves a spot over Johan, I got to defer to what Oviedo did his last time out and hope that if you're the Pirates, that kind of trends back in that direction and that you keep getting Ortiz longer starts in Indy. And, it's baseball. There's going to come a point later this year where he'll be called upon, and maybe other guys will be too. But there's no reason to force the issue and upset a guy in an Oviedo or whatever it may be just because Luis gives you one good start. That's kind of where I stand.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I like the redecorating you've done in your apartment. It looks very nice. You want to tell the viewers about this?
Yeah, I was going to say, over my left shoulder, I guess it is, got the palm tree inside. I moved it into
Andrew
my shady
spends his spare time in tropical climates, for anybody watching who may not know.
Yeah, this year was Puerto Rico. Last year was Turks and Caicos. So this is my last day in San Juan. And it's cool. I was telling you about this earlier, but I was able to walk around Roberto Clemente's home neighborhood here in San Juan, which is really cool. Fascinating. Great city if anybody gets the chance to visit. It's certainly well worth it.
That's all we got?
Yeah.
Come on.
All right. The beaches are awesome. The weather's great. The food's tremendous. Yeah, no, awesome here. Can't recommend it enough. It's beautiful along the water. I'm like maybe a 20-second walk away from the beach. It's been great here. Cannot recommend it enough. Love Pittsburgh. Don't get me wrong. Love my time there. But being at the beach, that's kind of an essential thing for me every now and then.
Yeah, well, I've got something better than that. I'm staring out at all of Detroit right now and enjoy the beat because I'm not coming home. I love this city. And dating back to my time on hockey, man, I always talked about how much I love Detroit, and I still love Detroit. It's one of my favorite road cities, as crazy as people think I am for thinking that, and I don't care. So I always stay at this place, the Detroit Renaissance Center. Have you ever stayed here?
I've not, but I know where you're talking. It's a great spot.
It is. And so it's this like 80-story hotel. You can have breakfast, like looking out at Canada. It's fantastic. Anyway, so I get in late last night, and they assigned me to a room that like hadn't been cleaned. There's towels and whatever. It happens. So they, I'm so sorry, sir. We'll put you in somewhere else. And they upgraded me to some suite thing. So anyway, I'm up on this like king executive suite that I have no business being in, and that there are these like windows from one end of the room to the other, probably 20 yards total, and I'm looking out at like Ford Field, Comerica Park, Little Caesars Arena. I think that's Little Caesars Arena. Yes, that's Little Caesars. I can see the Little Caesars guy on top. You can like see the Detroit River behind. It's gorgeous. It's one of the most gorgeous hotel views ever. So, I mean, you can have your beaches in San Juan and Puerto Rico. I've got Detroit, baby. Don't mess with me.
I'm not going to mess with you, but I will ask if you could show the audience the view, man. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know if you got it in you, but
I've got it in me. I don't have the talent in me is the problem. There you can see my sweatshirts on the table. Yeah. So
palatial.
Hopefully that some view. Yeah. So I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite hotel rooms ever. And notice to the Post-Gazette, I didn't pay for this. It was a free upgrade. So I don't want to hear from our travel people. Lovely Linda Parker will be coming after me. But no. So anyway, I wanted to get that in there because I think that's important for you. Like, that's cool that you got to walk around Clemente's hometown and see that stuff. I am jealous of that. But okay. So let me flip the tables on you, though, because I do want you to talk about the Solometo piece. This is a guy I think a lot of Pirates fans know. Young left-hander, funky left-hander, just obviously a noticeable delivery. He's made some changes, it sounds like. What changes has he made?
Yeah, 2 of them. And the first one I found really interesting. I was kind of breaking down the video, looking at last year versus this year. He's trying to raise his left elbow and his left hand. So yeah, I'm a natural righty, so a little hard for me, but trying really hard to get a 90-degree here before he's whipping it back versus he's kind of coming from more of a 3/4, 3/5 slot. And that, in addition to fixing it, or not fixing, but adapting his physique. I mean, he's lost 25 pounds, got leaner, and that in addition to the stride that he's making. Yeah, give it to me.
90?
Right here.
He's at 90?
What? 90. He's trying to be right here before he fires. It's almost like a catcher. Yeah. which I find really interesting. I'd never heard that concept before, but
Same.
wants to be right here. Yeah, wants to be right here. And then his stride, he had found that looking at video, he was almost like a ballerina dancer when he was striding off the mound because his left heel was kicking up off the ground while he was landing with his right foot. So now with his stride, he's looking to keep one foot on the ground at all times as part of gaining more leverage. You add those two together, there's a reason he's throwing up to 97 now with the fastball. Last year, he was sitting right around 88 to 90. So really interesting. He's making both those changes. The 90 degree, he's definitely there. The stride, he's still getting closer to it. But physique, mentality, everything, he's adapted that a lot, it looks like.
It's wild to me, Andrew. Like, reading your story, he's dropped like 20 pounds too.
Yeah.
And you don't see many guys that like drop that much weight, make mechanical adjustments, and then, you know, he's up to 95, 96 or whatever the heck he's throwing velocity wise. Like it's pretty darn impressive. And we know he's got the stuff. The delivery has remained like a little funky and weird. I also like him. Like, he's just a good kid. I think I told you this before you did the phone interview with him. Like, he's just a colorful quote. It's like grew up a Steelers fan. I remember our introductory Zoom call with him was a lot of fun. And I saw you talk to him about Chick-fil-A sandwiches. That was good. That was a fun anecdote like that. But just a really good kid.
Great guy. You said it. I mean, the Chick-fil-A sandwiches one had me laughing because I asked him, like, what has he changed? What's he been working on? He's like, yeah, well, I've lost 25 pounds. I'm at 195. I'm like, well, the website still has you at 220. He's like, well, that's just so that I don't eat any more Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Kid's a ride. He's great. And and not just that, just excelling in Greensboro, not an easy place to pitch. And I mean, John Baker said it didn't rule out the notion of this guy being somebody who could fast track through the system. At 20 years old, I think this is a name we're going to be talking about more and more as the months go by and as we get closer to whenever it's call-up time for him, if and when, because he's got legit stuff. And if he's throwing that hard from the left side, it's going to be hard to keep him down in single A, I think.
They better fast track somebody, Andrew. The natives are getting restless. I know that much. Henry Davis.
We're talking about fast track.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if we're talking about fast tracking people, it's got to be Henry and Endy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what track they're on, but it's not a fast one. I don't understand it. And I get not promoting them to the major leagues right now. I think the people that are saying, oh, the offense thinks we need to promote Henry Davis, like, that's not a clear solution. You're not doing what's best for the kid at that point. Like, at that point, I look at it and say, yeah, it has been 18 games in AA. Like, that's probably a little too much too soon. He hasn't caught a game in AAA. I don't think the Pirates are absurd for saying we want one of our top prospects, kid we took 1-1, invested money in, somebody we need to be a viable part of our future. Like, we want to see him catch in AAA. We want that part of the development to happen. Like, that's not a crazy ask. But what the heck is he still doing in AA? Like, he proved last year when healthy, he's good. He's healthy now and really good. Basically, the only reason you have him in AA, and he doesn't want to be in AA. Let's also remember that. He's 23. Yep. He's a mature 23, a college kid. Like, get him the heck out of there. Get him to AAA. Give him the opportunity. And there's just some things that I don't understand about what they're doing and saying surrounding this. Like, Ben Cherington goes on the radio on Sunday and says he needs to catch. That's why we have him there. He needs to catch. He caught twice last week. He played right field twice last week. If he needs to catch, have him catch. Have him catch in 5-6 days a week if that's really the answer. Then why are you screwing around with him in right field? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, my suspicion is they're trying to find a way to merge the two. They're trying to find a way to get Henry up, Endy up. And I feel like they're putting off a decision that is inevitable here. And I think we've talked about this before, where just commit to one of them. Just commit to one of them as your everyday catcher. It's probably Henry at this point. I mean, if Endy's elbow is barking at you, he's already athletic. Like, just bounce him around. Maybe bounce him to first base, frankly. You don't have a succession plan after Carlos Santana. Maybe it's Endy. I don't know. But that's what I would do. I would just create that scenario now. Bump Henry up to AAA, catch Endy twice a week, bounce him to first, second, outfield, whatever it is, get his bat going. And then, you know what? If Endy gets hot, he's right there, but right now he's hitting like 240, which is one reason why I think it's a little bit crazy to start talking about him like being this call up. Let him hit. If he hits for a month, bring him up. All right. But just to me, you need to find a way to merge the two of them. What are your thoughts on it?
Right there with you. And the one point that I'll make too is that with Henry, you mentioned him getting a couple of starts in the outfield. I think the outfield experiment with him is really, I know he has the big arm, right? Like that's probably his best defensive tool behind the plate is that he has the arm. I don't think outfield is in his future. If you're going to move him off of catcher, like if we're going to move him anywhere, right? To me, it's his other options are first base and DHing. Those are the other two spots for Henry logistically or logically speaking in my mind. And I know that is disservice to his throwing tool, but if you're going to move him anywhere, it's there. So the concrete plan should be, yes, like Ben Cherington has said, which I agree with. Yes, catch him as much as you can, get him behind the plate every day or 5 games a week, whatever it is. But if you're not doing that right now, the only other place you should be putting him is first, or again, or doing something like that. And I think it's a beautiful problem to have, which you and I have said, and I'm right there with you. It's that the nice thing is that you do have a guy in ND who does have position flexibility. So your tough problem to have down the line in a couple of years would be Henry is your everyday catcher. And if you need to spell him behind the plate, you've got a guy in ND you can stick back there for a game a week or 2 games a week. Not obviously as your de facto backup catcher, but as a guy who can give you a spot start behind the plate. And to me, it just seems like we're at the juncture where they need to be on the same team, and that shouldn't be the big leagues yet. It should be AAA. I think Henry is deserving of that call-up just based on everything offensively, because now he's not developing in that regard in terms of being challenged by the pitching at that level, getting on base every day, all that sort of stuff. Receiving is still something that, based on observations from seeing him work out and things like that, I think it's still very much something he needs to work on. But who's to say you can't still work on that in AAA, getting 3-4 starts? If you're getting 2 a week right now at catcher in AA, you could easily be doing that sometime with ND and AAA. I think it's a no-brainer for how they should be approaching this situation.
Yeah, and I mean, they're basically catching – you can look at the numbers like Altuna's games played versus games caught for Henry Davis. I mean, it works out to about 3 or 4 a week. So, I mean, you can go 3 or 4 a week in AAA. You can just say him and Endy, like, okay, you're going to catch 3, you're going to catch 3. Endy's going to spend, his other 2 days. Maybe he gets a rest day, I don't know, or a DH day. His other 2 days, he's going to play first base in the outfield. Henry, you're going to get a DH day and 2 days in right field. I don't know. I mean, if that's the arrangement, that's fine. I just don't see how it benefits Henry Davis to continue like sawing through AA pitching so they can catch him every day, and they're not actually catching him every day. That doesn't track with me.
Yeah, no, kind of a flaw in that plan there. And it seems like you have a pretty clear plan or a solution that you can do at the AAA level that they're just not doing right now. But on that front of guys in AAA, though, is there anybody that sticks out to you? And maybe this is off base just because those are the 2 top prospects in the hitting regard right now. But does a name like Nick Gonzalez, does a Malcolm Nunez, is either of these guys in a spot you think where they could be contributing at the big league level to help out, a struggling at scuffling offense, or is you kind of got to ride with what you got, and it's not time to press the panic button in that aspect?
Not Nunez, in my opinion. I think you're rushing it a little bit with Nick. I do. He's had a good start to May. That's it. Was injured, was not terribly good before. Trying to pull up some of his May stats. At one point, he was hitting 368. This was on May 11th. I don't think it's gone down too much. He has a hit in most games this month. Maybe he was in the minor league stuff yesterday, but he's been productive this month. I'd ride it out more. I don't see a clear path to playing time. Honestly, like I don't have a huge issue with what they're doing at second base right now, and it's basically turned into a timeshare with, bouncing somebody over to short. Maybe it's Bay, maybe it's Castro. Owings is going to play a little bit. It's a little redundant roster-wise. I don't know if Nick Gonzalez is going to spell that. I'd ride it a little more. The only guy I see coming up, Andrew, I guess there's 2. And this is to, not saying Rob Zastryzny is probably going to be down there on a rehab stint. I would bring Zastryzny up as soon as I could because I think they need the lefty. Angel Perdomo has been really good. If you remember him from spring training, 6'8" lefty. He's somebody who intrigues me. And Colin Selby has been dominant for a while, 40-man roster guy added this offseason. So I think they're going to dip down there and get pitching depth. at some point, but position player wise, I'm not sure if there's anybody I see to bring up.
Yeah, Selby's been great out of the pen for them. I mean, that's a good choice for sure. And I'm with you. I don't look at any of these guys that are tearing the cover off the ball. Nunez has shown a little bit, but it's really kind of been a cold start to the year for him. And Gonzalez, the thing that keeps sticking with me is I know he's cut down the numbers a little bit, but month of April, he was really struggling just making contact, striking out a lot. And in May, that's kind of improved a little bit. But I'd like to see those numbers probably go down a little bit because we've seen it with the Pirates and several other organizations where you rush a guy where contact isn't at the consistent clip you like, and it really can kind of backtrack a guy. Because if you're striking out 50% of the time in the big leagues, that can really hurt your confidence, right?
Yep. Organization, huh? Organization.
Damn. Away from the beat for too long. Yeah, I go right back into my old ways. You get me away from Pittsburgh for too long, I start talking.
That's like your old ways. You're not Canadian. You're from California. You're not Canadian. You're saying that like somebody from Manitoba. You covered hockey for 2 years. What, 2 years now? 1 year?
1 year. I covered it in college. How about that?
Organization. In America, you covered hockey at Penn State. You didn't cover the, I don't know, Guelph Storm or something. Jeez, whiz.
Franchise.
Spend your off seasons in London, Ontario now, apparently. All right.
I guess I'm Joe Thornton. Come on.
All right. That does it. That should do it, right?
I think that covers us. Anything else ahead of the 2 games set in Detroit? I mean, I'll be seeing you soon. You'll be back in Pittsburgh soon enough. But
I know. I'll be back in Pittsburgh on Wednesday evening, theoretically, if I choose to leave the picturesque locale of Detroit, Michigan. I don't want to, but I guess I don't think the Post-Gazette will pay for me to live here in perpetuity, sad as it is. So, I'll see you on Friday at the park.
Sounds good. I guess Post-Gazette probably won't cover me to live in Puerto Rico, but hey, we can't have everything. Oh, well.
All right, buddy. Enjoy your trip.
Will do. Take care. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.